feeling good, Italian.
I'm feeling good, Tommy. Boy, how are you, brother?
I am really, really well. Thank you. It's been a great week. It's nice to have a year where we have a full spring. So some of those days in the gloom, you still get to get up and know that you're not going to drown in your own sweat. Those days are just ahead of us, I'm sure. But here we are and enjoying a southern spring for a change. But how are you, man?
Well, I had to wear sleeves this morning to our workout, which is 53 degrees on a May 25th in South Carolina. It kind of threw me off my game, but I'm doing well.
Bundle up in your Afghan at cafeteria afterwards.
Yeah, that's, made sure I had my winter woolen cap, or as we in the South call it, a toboggan. No, man, I was just rocking an old school F3 long sleeve shirt. Hey, I learned something this week. We always do the looking good, feeling good at the beginning, because we stole that from Trading Places, one of my favorite movies of all time. Did you know the original actors that were supposed to play those roles were Richard Pryor and Gene Wilder?
I did not know that. That would have been just as good of a movie, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe,
yeah. So,
perhaps better. I don't know. That might be blasphemy, but I mean, that's a duo right there.
I learned it this week, and I thought, hey, you know what? I should share that with TV. So if you haven't learned anything new today, you learned that. So you got that going for you, which is nice.
I'll share that around the dinner table tonight. The kids will appreciate not knowing anything that I just said.
Absolutely. Hey, TB, what are we talking about today?
Yeah. In typical fashion, we're flying by the seat of our pants here at the Stuff We're Trying podcast. However, this one came with some consideration in the form of, A, it's not typical fashion. It did not come off Slack. B, it was so close to my face, I didn't even realize that it was something worth trying. And C, I get a chance to talk with some of my closest friends. So the theme of the episode, as everybody has already seen, is Nant'ans. And where this started was back when I became Nant'an. And it's an opportunity. This episode, let's not even bury the lead. This episode is for the Nant'ans. This is something that's worked really well in Greensboro. Again, we were so close to it, we probably didn't even realize how selfish we were being by not sharing it. So this is kind of a makeup call for that opportunity. We'll dive into it here in a minute, but as per usual, let's do a little warmer-rama. So we've got founding Nant'an Emeritus from F3 Greensboro, Wojo, and current Nant'an from F3 Greensboro, Akron. So fellas, welcome to the podcast. As always, give us a name-orama. How'd you get your name? Wojo, we'll start with you.
Good morning, gentlemen. Wojo from Greensboro. Paul Wingate, 52, Wojo. I got my name in the spring of 2014 when I worked out with the Dash Packs in Winston-Salem. And I got the name because I am a black and gold bleeding Wake Forest alumnus, and I actually work at Wake Forest. And one of my F3 mentors is Starfish out of Dash Packs, who has done some leap work with the nation. And as a fraternity brother of mine at Wake, he and a former colleague who was a Carolina grad conspired to name me after an obnoxious Dookie basketball player.
Yep, so, Wojciechowski.
That's me. And if you don't do a Wojo squat well, I'm going to slap you.
Nice.
Slap the floor.
It's in the name. All right, Akron. Speaking of show-off basketball studs, how'd you get Akron?
Hey, man. First of all, no, I'm joking. So, Count CO Glenn, 39, Akron. First workout was a Memorial Day Convergence. Square invited me and told everybody that I don't like LeBron James. So they named me after the city he's from, hence the Akron. But I've embraced it. I tweet a lot of Akron memes.
You show up with the chalk dust.
Yeah, I have shown up with the chalk dust. So I've embraced it.
What you're saying is you've had a really good week this week as the Lakers have dipped out of the NBA Finals.
I don't think I slept that night responding to tweets on Twitter and just liking posts and sending all my LeBron fans all of the sweet memes. And yeah.
Well done. Not a tear shed.
Can we all agree that the GOAT is Michael Jordan? That LeBron's can't even hold his jock? Can we agree on that?
Absolutely.
I'll sign off on that.
I'll debate anybody on that.
I'd be willing to put Tim Duncan over LeBron James. So
I definitely put
baby.
The big fundamental. Big fundamental.
Kareem as well.
There you
I
go.
like how this call is going already, man.
This is going to be a 2-episode week.
Let me tell you, the guys are going to stop listening right now and just say, "Nope, I'm not listening to this. You guys all suck. I'm going away."
Of course, we could put Kobe over there too.
Thank you.
I might go Magic and Bird if I'm feeling froggy that week.
I mean, I like where this is going. Hey, TB, let's just switch what we were talking about. Let's start talking some basketball, some 80s, 90s, early 2000s basketball.
Look out, ESPN. We're coming for your podcast too.
That's right. Right.
I dig it. Well, let me start off this way. And Wojo, I'll pose the first question to you. So you passed off the shovel flag to Daphne. Daphne passed off the Nant'an shovel flag to me, and immediately turned around and said, we're not just handing this off to you. Like, we're here as a resource for you. And it was more than just the SLT. And I mean that in the sense that you two guys have been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. SLT certainly is invaluable to F3. But what became of our relationship, and for me specifically, was to be able to be a sounding board. You guys were my sounding board. I never felt like I was floating out there and having to make decisions by myself. And so I guess what I would say to you as the guy who was the guy, talk about the formation of the dogs and kind of the when and the why. And really, as a founding dog, what did you gain from supporting a new Nant'an?
Well, we're called to give it away, but I don't think we give it away and just leave town. So if we're truly about leaving our community better than we found it, I think it's incumbent upon us, if we're building leaders, to be there for those leaders that we hand the shovel flag to. When the original SLT sort of rolled off, I thought it was really important for us to sort of stay engaged, not for oversight, not to continue to make decisions, not to be always asked if it was okay, but just to be a resource for the new guys. But I felt like from the Nant'an position, it's even more important, because as the Nant'an, you get pulled into conversations and other things beyond the SLT. And it may be personal stuff. It may be PAX members taking liberty with lists, email lists. It can be 20 different things. And when you throw the global pandemic in and our society sort of goes off the rails, there's a whole nother thing that happened that you dealt with, Tommy Boy. And so I felt like it was just a great opportunity for us to be there for each other. And, the Diamond Dogs is a blatant steal from Ted Lasso. But it just seemed to fit as I handed the shovel flag to Daphne, and Daphne handed it to you, and you handed it to SACT. I think it's just been really important for us to sort of have our own little shield lock as Nant'ans, and that's really what it is. And I've had some, as a troubadour, I've had conversations with other regions, and I've had other conversations with SLTs where, a Nant'an hands a shovel flag over, an SLT, hands their position over, and they never pick up they take the gloves off and they stay in the region, but that's it from a leadership perspective. And I just think that what we're doing helps with continuity, it's just a sounding board. It helps with advice. And, Akron can talk about that now from his standpoint of how we've got his back. And he can bring stuff to us he's thinking about, or concerns he has, to sort of sound them out even before maybe taking him to the SLT, and we can give him some advice. Or if he's struggling with X, Y, or Z, or hey, this role in the SLT is not moving forward, or whatever, there's an opportunity to have a discussion and to kick the tires on some things and to get some insight or maybe some opinions, and sometimes they're just that, before making a decision or going down a specific road.
Yep. Well, since you teed it up nicely, let's jump over to Akron for a second. Akron, we all recently went up the mountain to outside of Boone, and a great weekend up there working out with those guys. And really, that was where this whole concept of this Nant'an tribe kind of became super real for me, because it was the opportunity where I first really got to ask, how can I be of service to you, Akron? And that was important for two reasons. One was, you're my friend, I love you, and I'll help you any way I can. And in the greater sense of F3, I don't want to not be of service to the thing that has such an impact on my life, nor to the men who have paved the way before me. So talk a little bit about that experience for you as you were kind of fresh into the Nant'an role and full of ideas.
It was cool to have a sounding board, really. And, sometimes when you get a new role, you get all kind of ideas, and to be able to bounce some of them off before you take it to the SLT or even fine tune some of them was good. I know, and I won't say what that time frame was, but at the retreat, we talked about, hey, when do you plan on giving up the shovel flag? And I told, and Wojo was like, hey, I'm glad that it's that time frame. That seems about right. And it was good to hear that. Okay, all right, that's good that I'm on the right track. I think it was good to be confirmed in the sense that the thoughts and ideas you had were good, and it was also cool just being the youngest guy there for a little bit.
Wait, was that shade? Did you just throw shade on that?
Just a little bit. Nah, but no, it was really cool hanging out, man. And like I said, you guys have been in the role, done it before. To be kind of, hey, and you've done this in several different ways, but to have all the Nant'ans kind of put their arm on your shoulder and say, hey, man, how can we help? That meant a lot, that meant a lot to me. Knowing that if anything ever happens, or if I ever have anything that I need help on, I got guys that have worn that hat, had those boots, have sat at that podium, whatever you want to call it, and done it before that I can call on. It was also great that nobody tried to force any ideas, if that makes sense. Like, hey, you should do this or you should do that. It was just, okay, this is what you want to do. All right, this is how we can make that happen. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been in a role. Unfortunately, I can't say that I'm part of a shield lock with the previous Nant'ans of the region that I was the first Nant'an of. But one of them, the current Nant'an, is in my shield lock currently. And we are planning our 10-year for next year. And they've asked, would you be interested in being part of the planning, basically the committee, so to speak, for us to figure out what are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And of course, I'm honored. And there are certain things that I remember from 10 years back that some of the newer guys don't quite remember. So they asked, what would you do if you were in charge? If you could do anything, what would you do? And I said, well, first, I would go to just our first 5 original AOs, weekday AOs, combine everybody at those spots, bring in some of the guys who we haven't seen in a while, have a real focus on the cotters. But more importantly, let's do the things we used to do. I mean, years ago, guys, our workouts were Dora. Every workout was Dora and string of pearls. That's what we did because that's what we knew. We knew nothing else. And now we all have, and we were talking about what you guys are going to be doing this evening at a workout in Greensboro, some exercises I've never heard of, which I'd love to incorporate in my home region. But there are things that the guys who've been there for a while, they remember certain things and they remember certain guys. And it's just really nice, as Akron was saying, it's that validation, that's a good idea. How can I support you? And it's also, that's a great idea. And I'm not going to force anything on you. Just the same as you're not going to force it on me. But it's nice to be asked, and it's nice to offer some insight, but to have that camaraderie, the guys beside you who are literally, I've been there, and hey, before you touch that stove, let me tell you, it's hot. I touched it before and it burned. So it's nice to have that. And unfortunately, we don't have it in the corporate environment a lot of times. Our mentors are either so far removed from the position or never held that position. So a lot of times you find out the hard way, whereas in this capacity, you've got guys who've been there and they say, hey, before you touch that stuff, well, heads up, I've done it and I want to protect you from it. So I think what you guys have done here, building out that group, that shield lock of sorts of Nant'an and previous Nant'ans, I think it's an awesome thing that is stuff worth trying for all regions who are going through a transition.
I want to share a quick quote. I was talking to Sat earlier this morning, and he is who I passed on the Nant'an helm to. Thanks for of him, and it was a fun conversation in that he said, I need some time. I'm not really sure I'm in the place to say yes, but give me 3 days. And then the next day he called back and said yes. So that was pretty brilliant. Right guy at the right time, as it always seems to work out. But he shared this morning and asked that I would share that what he found most valuable, or really invaluable about this connection, is that the support from true friends, that he could be in a space where he would never be too far out ahead of everybody because we would pull him back in, or that he could call at the drop of a hat and we would rally around him, sit on the back porch and chew up whatever was either bothering him or inspiring him. And so an imperfect stacked quote, he just paid it all forward. So that would kind of segue me into a question for you, Wojo, as again, the founding guy in F3 Greensboro, and we talk about stuff worth trying. What do you think, what do you sense, if anything, that you missed by not having an SLT of Nant'ans in proximity when you were starting things?
Well, we really didn't know a whole lot about what we were doing. In the first, and when we launched in October, and I still chase a few things from the early email string, and I'll go back and I'll see that we had support from Starfish. I mean, Starfish was invaluable. Not only did he come work out for us for a while, he led our first Q school. And so even 3 or 4 or 5 months into F3 Greensboro's existence, he was still around helping us out and was a great sounding board on, hey, what, and I didn't even know, okay, what do we need to do before we can become an official region? It used to be where you had to launch so many different workouts, you had to help a new region get started, and it was a process. You were sort of a Italian job. You're gonna have to help me with what the terminology was. It's escaping me. But you were, I guess, a colony before you were a region. I don't know. That's not right.
Yeah, I don't recall I feel like it was the concentric growth model, where you basically build out to the point where you're overarching another area and then you kind of hand off. Yep. But you're exactly right. It required 2 Saturday AOs, and you had to have a certain number of guys who were posting. I mean, it was for a group that has 5 core principles. It was weird to have an extra set of rules, but it was the proven model. It's the Columbia model. It was what had worked historically. But you had to have that guy shouldering with you, because otherwise, this was pre-Slack, Nation Slack channel. This was pre-podcast or Nation newsletter. This was, I mean, you guys have been around for 10 years now, right? It's been almost 10.
Yeah,
so
we're about to hit 9.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys were pretty early on in the stage. So having that guy who could say, hey, this is what we've done in Winston, here's what you need to be aware of, I'm sure that was pretty beneficial.
Yeah. And it was, and we had the support of some guys from Charlotte too. But I remember clearly Starfish and a few others were key. But it was about, okay, you have to be a region, you've got to not only have the workouts and the number of guys, but you've got to have an SLT. It was a Q board. I mean, we called it Q board back then. You had to have a Q of the first F, a Q of the second F, a Q of the third F, a Q of comms, and all of the back and forth was text or email. To your point, there was no Slack. Twitter was our communication device to the masses, and email. I mean, but we got there and worked with Winston-Salem to launch Kernersville and Burlington at the end of our first year. And so, as we got to our first year, we were checking all the boxes, and then we're pretty ready to help give it away. But yeah, I mean, it was those guys that helped launch us, and the relationship, honestly, that I had from a fraternity brother, that was fun to reconnect with, because I mean, I had stayed up with him, but not like this. So that was a neat addition to our relationship.
Akron, jumping ahead again, we'll kind of land the plane here, but just talk a little bit, or maybe give the hard sell to guys who are out there. And I'll call up an example that I've seen, and I'm guilty of too. There's a great Nant'an Slack channel for the nation. And oftentimes when that torch is passed to the next guy up, you get the, hey fellas, meet Akron. He's F3 Greensboro's new Nant'an. Peace, I'm out. And I think I just always assumed that the peace, I'm out just meant I'm going to bounce out of this channel because I'm not Nant'an, out of respect for the next guy up. I need to make sure he's the guy. What we've come to find out in some regions, probably many, is that, as we hinted at earlier, some guys may have the tendency to think that they've been wrung out, like their leadership. Thank you for your time. I'll see y'all later. I'm going to be a PAX member and get out of the way. And I think that they're missing the opportunity to pour into the next guy, whether it's through being an open ear or an ideation partner or joining the SLT, whatever it may be. But talk a little bit, or sell us on the idea of not letting that be the end of a man's flight path when it comes to service above self.
Yeah, I think leadership doesn't stop when you pass the baton. And I think that's what, unfortunately, some guys kind of think, that, hey, once I'm done, Nant'an, there's nothing else I can do in my region. Like Wojo, he just became a site Q after being Nant'an. I think that just keeping in mind that there are very few guys that have worn the hat that you've worn, and your experience in that seat is invaluable. And it doesn't stop once you put the new guy on the Slack channel. Like, you still have value and input to add from a perspective that not many people have. I would encourage and implore them to continue to stay engaged and involved at that level, just because it's not many that have been there. And again, leadership doesn't end once you pass that baton. I was telling you earlier before, I think we pressed record, I was at a real estate conference this week, and we talked about leadership a lot. And it was talking about a Navy SEAL who wrote a book on leadership. And he was talking about how every time something bad happened, his response was good. He's like, so-and-so called out for work. Good. Yep.
Chaco.
Good. And again, it's just the opportunity for us to learn and get better. But how much more service or help could it be if the current Nant'an in whatever region or area was standing on the shoulders of those that were before him? How much further could he push? What more can he accomplish? What more could he do if he still had that support, as opposed to, kind of how they did Larry Bird and Magic, giving them a rocking chair once they retired?
Yeah. Bringing it full circle.
That's next week's episode. We're going to talk about the rocking chair idea. So,
and that's a great analogy, Akron. Really is. Thanks for sharing that.
All right, fellas, typical fashion. If you have a final thought, we'd love to hear it. No pressure, but you guys again are serving in a role that, as has been said a moment ago, few men have served yet, and many men are aspiring to that level. So, any final thoughts for those guys who are pushing through, and any final thoughts to anyone listening that's considering starting their own version of what we call the Diamond Dogs?
It's been a lot of fun to continue to spend time with guys who are at the tip of the spear in our region, and I think it helps make our region better. It adds cohesion, and selfishly for this little group of Diamond Dogs, it's a lot of fun. And so I would encourage every region to think about how this might be something worth trying for you guys.
Anything from you, Akron, Mr. Nant'an?
What's the ask one more time? I apologize.
Just any final words or anything that you'd want to share about the value of having this? Yeah.
Yeah. Again, like I said, we talked about leadership a lot this weekend, and I would just, sometimes that comes without a title. We're a leader in most facets of our lives, whether that's being a father, a husband, a brother. Leadership is a lifestyle. It's not just a title. So even if you're not a Nant'an and you listen to this, there's ways within F3 you can be a leader, even if it's not with the title of a Site Q or First FQ. We obviously we like to say that we're a leadership group disguised as a workout group, and I think it's advantageous of us to live that out.
I'll take claps to that. Absolutely. Italian job. Anything from you, my friend?
Yeah, man. So, I write something each morning. I do a tweet each morning. And the one that it just kind of ties up with this, coincidentally, I wrote something yesterday, maybe. And it's a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. It said, "What you do speaks loudly. It speaks so loudly that I cannot hear what you say." And so what I wrote on that was actions speak louder than words. If you say one thing but do another, your words are hollow and your reputation is soiled. Words and deeds should be an extension of each other. Look no further than our own politicians to see how ineffective leaders can be when the trust is degraded. What we're talking about here when we talk about leadership is it really comes down to sometimes the best leader you can be is the guy who's just there. He's present and he's leading from the front. He's not seeking for any pats on the back. He's not seeking accolades, and he's not asking for anybody to acknowledge his leadership. The best leaders are the ones that just do. They just step in and they just do. Now, as a leader, it helps to be surrounded by other leaders, the guys who are around you, who've been there, who've done that, who want to share with you. But really, it comes down to leadership's a whole lot easier when you're surrounded by other leaders who care about the same thing, the same purpose, and where you're moving. So to be surrounded by men like Wojo and Tommy Boy, and to be surrounded with men like Akron and the rest of the guys that we are blessed to be around in the mornings. True leadership a lot of times is doing the things that you don't think anyone notices because you're just doing the actions and you're not trying to draw attention to it. Those are the leaders we want to follow. And like I said before, it just helps be surrounded by other leaders who care about the same things you care about, which is the invigoration of male community leadership. So solid T-claps to the men of Greensboro, all the stuff you guys are doing in Natville. Excited to share this message and what you guys have found and what's worked well for the Nant'ans and the previous Nant'ans and the future Nant'ans. Tommy Boy, I'll toss it back to you.
What else is great about leadership? When your tech works. So I dipped out a little bit on that one. I saw your tweet. I love your tweet because it is spot on. It's deeds, not words. Podpaxers, get after it. Find stuff that's worth trying. When you find it, share it. We want to hear about it. There's men out there who you could be the reason that they accelerate to the next level of who they're meant to be because you've pulled an obstacle out of their way, and they're going to pass it off to the next guy. We will see you in a week, it sounds like. Have a great Memorial Day weekend. Good luck on Monday's Mirth. Crush that score, crush that PR, and remember what it's all about. Be good or be good at it.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you.